When we think of terrifying ways to go, being frozen to death slowly in the middle of nowhere is exactly the first thing that comes to mind. But if you had been one of the 9 Russian hikers who perished in the Dyatlov Pass Incident in 1959, this is exactly how you would have died. Not only that, but some of you would have been barefoot. In 2023, there are still more questions than answers surrounding the event. So, today, let's get to the bottom of it. How did these people die? Did they know their way around the mountains? And what does it all mean for us? Let's take a look at the Dyatlov Pass Incident. On February 1959, 9 experienced Russian hikers left the Vysotsky railway station to go on an excursion in the northern Ural Mountains. The group consisted of Yuri Yudin, Ludmila Dubinina Zeneda, Kolmogorova, Alexander Maslenikov, Rustem Sloboda, Nikolai Thibault, Yuri Krivoshenko, Semyon Zolotaryev, and Igor. They planned to hike to the Otorten mountain, which was 16 miles away. It was said to be an easy trek that even a child could do. After arriving at their destination, the group set up camp in a clearing about 45 feet from the nearest trees and buried their valuables so that other hikers could enjoy them after they passed. 2 days later, Yuri Yudin became ill with an unspecified disease and returned to the train station by himself. The remaining 8 continued their journey. On the morning of February 2nd, the group broke camp and headed toward a nearby pass. According to the group's plan, they would stay the night at the pass before making the final ascent to Otorten. The following day, however, that night, a nearby avalanche killed 2 of the party. When the rest of the group woke up at 8 a.m. the next morning, they unzipped their tent to an absolutely horrifying scene. 2 of their friends were dead. Their tent had been ripped open from the inside, and their bodies were covered in small pebbles that had been pushed into their clothing. The tent was also torn to shreds, something that hadn't happened when it was pitched. Upon discovering their dead friends, the group made the decision to descend the mountain immediately. At 10 a.m., they left the campsite and began their journey back to civilization. They had hoped to find shelter at a nearby village, although that didn't exist until they were nearly 8 miles down the slope. By this point, they were exhausted and cold, so they decided to make camp once again. This time, the group pitched their tent near a river at the bottom of the valley. It would be their last camp. On February 4th, 2 members of the hiking group were discovered wandering near a train track 75 miles away. They were barefoot and in poor condition, but otherwise unharmed. Later that same day, they were joined by another member of the group who appeared to be delirious. She muttered something about never wanting to see a mountain again before collapsing to the ground. She never regained consciousness. By February 6th, a search party had been organized. On February 7th, they discovered the remains of the tent where the group had been staying. Inside, they found 6 frozen bodies, including the group leader Igor. Outside the tent, they found 2 additional bodies, including one that was completely naked except for a pair of boots. Of the 9 hikers, only 3 would survive. A number of strange factors surrounded the hikers' deaths. Some wore only thin, cotton clothing despite temperatures reaching negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Several bodies were found with crushed skulls, something that would not have been caused by hypothermia alone. Also, when the men's clothing was analyzed, they were found to have high levels of radiation, although no one knows why. A strange humming noise was reported in the area around the time of the incident, but local residents told investigators that such noises were common and nothing out of the ordinary had happened. It wasn't long before conspiracy theories started heating up. One of the most popular claims that extraterrestrials were responsible for the deaths has no real evidence to back it up, but it makes sense in a way. If aliens were trying to study the human body and its reactions to cold, or maybe they just wanted to take a few souvenirs, why not take some random people in the middle of nowhere? It would be the perfect crime. However, there doesn't seem to be any hard evidence to support this theory. Another idea is that the hikers were the victims of an experimental military weapon. There were rumors at the time that the Soviet Union was testing powerful sound waves called to see if they could be used as a non-lethal weapon. These low-frequency sounds wouldn't be audible to the human ear, but could cause intense feelings of dread, anxiety, and nausea. Victims may also experience physical symptoms like chest pain, migraines, vomiting. Infrasound has been known to break windows, topple over trucks, and even collapse buildings. Although infrasound can cause these effects, it couldn't have killed the hikers. It is unlikely that it would have caused them to rip open their own tent or cause their internal organs to explode, which is what the autopsy reports said happened. There are much more plausible reasons for what took place. Experienced hikers know that even if you're well prepared, things can always go wrong. One of the most common causes of dying while hiking is hypothermia. Hypothermia occurs when your body loses heat faster than it can produce it. Your body temperature drops below 95 degrees, and your metabolism slows down. As hypothermia progresses, your heart rate and blood pressure drop, leading to cardiac arrest. It's possible that when the hikers discovered the two bodies in the morning, they panicked. They abandoned their belongings and tried to flee, but they weren't prepared to do so. Even though the terrain should have been relatively easy to navigate, they may have become disoriented and exhausted and decided to make camp. This could explain why some of the hikers were barefoot. Perhaps they removed their boots to make themselves more comfortable for what they thought would be a short trip. While there is no definitive answer as to why the hikers ripped open their tent, it's likely they felt trapped and claustrophobic. When you're freezing to death, there's not a lot of time to think things through. It's possible that they thought that if they cut open the tent, they could escape the feeling of being stuck in a confined space, but it just ended up making things worse. As for why some of the hikers had radiation on their clothing, that remains a mystery. Radiation is dangerous, but it's unlikely that the hikers knew that. They may have picked up radioactive elements from the soil and transferred it to their clothing. Or perhaps they were standing near the tent when it absorbed some kind of radiation. The most important takeaway from the Dyatlov Pass incident is to always be prepared. Even if you think you won't need to be, make sure you have adequate supplies and clothing. Check the weather often, and stick to safe trails. In most cases, hiking is a wonderful and rewarding experience, but it's important to remember that Mother Nature is a force not to be messed with. And sometimes even the best laid plans can go horribly awry. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think happened to the Dyatlov Pass hikers? Let us know in the comments section down below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up for more content like this. As always, thanks for watching.